Good morning. It's Monday, October 16th. And as I read yesterday, I kept wondering to myself, when is it going to stop? When is all the shit going to stop piling up on our doorstep in the United States? There are so many things that are going on inside our country and outside our country that are causing distress among many of us. Many of us who pay attention to what's going on. Now, we have many people in this country that don't really pay a lot of attention to what's going on. And I say that because if I know anything about the voting patterns in the U.S., I find out that most people vote the same way every year. They don't look for anything better or anything worse. They just vote with the party. Now, I'm not against being a loyal Republican or a loyal Democrat or a loyal conservative or whatever you want to be loyal to, but recognize the fact that just because you are loyal to those things doesn't mean that you are right every time. It doesn't mean that there isn't somebody better than the person that you are trying to vote for or trying to admire, whatever it is. And I'm saying this because there's a recent report that was issued by the United States about China. And it's probably true. A lot of what this report said is probably true. But the problem is that China reads this report. And China has now responded to the recent U.S. report. This report raises the possibility of a war by the United States against China and Russia simultaneously. Now, those are the second and third largest nuclear nations that exist. I don't know why a report that indicates that there might be a possibility of war between China, Russia, and the U.S. would ever get into the hands of China. How does that happen? A 145-page report on the possibility of this war. Somehow or other China gets their hands on it, and they are very upset about this report. And we can't have them being upset about this report. We've got them upset about the actions that we are taking in protecting Taiwan. Why do we need to raise more red flags? I am distressed that this report is not top secret in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how it got out into the atmosphere and that China got their hands on it. And naturally, they would be upset because I don't think they have made any overt action that would indicate that they really want to go to war with us. Yes, the situation in Taiwan is a tenuous situation. We are defending the rights of Taiwan. And Taiwan is in this little island nation that China believes belongs to them. And so China is very upset about the situation between us wanting to do so much for and with Taiwan and ignoring what China has said about that whole situation. So for them to get their hands on a report that states that we might be looking at the possibility of a war between Russia and China and us is really very sloppy on our part. This report was created and released by Congress. So doesn't Congress have any brains that they are releasing a report like this to get out? Do they think that China wouldn't be upset by this report? Do they believe maybe this report will change China's mind in whatever it's trying to do? I don't think they would. So you get China pissed off, and we have enough trouble in the negotiations with China about lots of things, so they're pissed off, and they have cautioned Washington that those who play with fire will perish by that fire. And who wants to have that hanging over our heads? We need to work very closely with China. We cannot have China as an enemy. We have enough enemies in this world. Do we need China as an enemy? No. No, yes. We don't agree with everything China does, and they have upset the equilibrium in this country for plenty of years, but that's our own fault. We sent all our business over to China because we didn't want to pay the wages in this country. So we created the monster that is China right now. And we have to learn to live with it, and we have to not keep making dumb mistakes. And the worst part about this report is that it doesn't come from us promoting the strength of our nation. It says in this report that we are ill prepared to face the growing nuclear threat by Russia and China. And maybe that's 100% true, but do we have to broadcast that to the world? And maybe it's not as true as those who wrote this report think. What does it mean to be ill-prepared? I have no idea. Does ill-prepared mean that I can't get to my weapons in time? Does it mean that I don't have the chutzpah to use it? Does it mean that we don't have the right people running our nuclear program? What the hell does it mean that we're ill-prepared? Are we not producing enough nuclear weapons? How many nuclear weapons do you really need? One of them is enough to put the world on fire. So the report describes the behavior of both Russia and China as militarily troubling and increasingly aggressive. Now, I don't know about that. I mean, there's no question about the aggressiveness of Russia, but they're tied up with this war in Ukraine. And if we're issuing a report like this, we ought to be hurrying up to help Ukraine end that strife instead of futzing around and giving them directions that stop them from really attacking Russia hard in the beginning. So this report has elevated a risk of conflict between Russia, China, and us. And this report also says that China will be our nuclear equal in the mid-2030s. And what are you going to be able to do about that? Nothing. Keep producing as much nuclear as you can to stay ahead of China. I don't know if that's the greatest idea in the world. So we have a mess on our hands. And we, as usual, are not doing a great job handling it. And maybe that's because we have too many messes on our hands. And so the experts here are recommending a change in our country's strategic posture and an increase in our military modernization. And so China comes out and says to the U.S., if you adopt even a small portion of the recommendations in this report, it could pose immeasurable harm and threats to world peace. Is that what we want? Is that the kind of relationship that we are trying to establish? I don't think so. So we put ourselves in a terrible position, allowing this report to get out into the domain. And I leave you with that this morning. Another U.S. mess. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you.